I'm Pauline Chu in Hong Kong, and we have a breaking news story out of
And it was here the disaster struck at Le Mans.
Welcome back to August 10th, 2010. It's an early Monday morning in the Philippines. A Hong Thai travel service bus was taking its normal route for the day, taking in about 25 tourists from Hong Kong. One of the passengers, during the boarding process, started to ask for a free ride, obviously being denied this request. This very quickly escalated, as when he was denied, he pulled a gun on the driver, handcuffed them to the steering wheel, and took the entire bus of passengers as hostages, devolving into one of the biggest tragedies and blunders in Filipino history. Rolando Mendoza, a former senior inspector of the Manila Police Force, armed with an M16 rifle and a handgun, created a 12-hour-long standoff with 25 hostages, all of which was televised. His request was to be reinstated into the police department with full benefits, claiming that he had been framed. Mendoza had been dismissed from the force in 2009 due to allegations of extortion. He graduated from the Philippine College of Criminology with a degree in criminology, joining the force as a patrolman in 1981, rising the ranks and becoming a senior inspector, becoming fairly decorated as well within the force, as he was decorated 17 times for his bravery and his honor. In February of 1986, Mendoza led a group of policemen that accosted a van carrying 13 crates full of money, which former Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos was apparently trying to smuggle out of the country. Mendoza and his team turned the shipment over to the authorities. For this, he was rewarded and declared one of the 10 outstanding policemen of the Philippines by the JCI that year. He was a very well-respected man on the force. Those who knew him and worked with him described him as an extremely hard-working and kind man. On April 9th of 2008, hotel chef Christian Kala alleged that he was accosted by Mendoza and several other officers over a parking violation. Kala alleged that the police force planted sachets of methamphetamine in his car, forced him to take the drug, and then accused him of being a drug addict. The officers also allegedly demanded Kala access his bank ATM and hand over money. Kala said the policeman released him after a friend raised 20,000 pesos on his behalf. The office of the ombudsman found Mendoza and 4 others guilty of misconduct and ordered Mendoza's dismissal from the service and the voiding of all of his benefits. In late April 2008, he was relieved as chief of the Mobile Patrol Unit. In August of 2008, the 8th Division of the Manila Prosecutor's Office vacated the case after Kala failed to attend the dismissal proceedings. And in October, the PNP Internal Affairs Service recommended the case just be dropped. Mendoza was later dismissed from the police force in February of 2009 on charges of extortion. Mendoza's brothers, Gregorio and Florencio, later stated that all his brother wanted was a fair hearing by the ombudsman, who never even gave him a chance to defend himself. They just immediately dismissed him. During this time, allegations also started to arise that Mendoza took part in a gang rape in 1997. But nothing came of this, as the accuser never showed up to court. He was a father of 3, and he was loved by the community. Within an hour of the takeover, Mendoza would let 6 of the hostages out in exchange for a tour guide and 2 photographers that volunteered, later letting them go as well. Over time, more and more news outlets began reporting on the incident, live, including online and Chinese news broadcasts. News anchor Erwin Tulfo, who at the time worked at News 5, was in constant contact with Rolando, alongside 2 negotiators. At around 2, he began to put notes around the bus windows. Translated, they said, "A big mistake to correct a big wrong decision. Big deal will start after 3 p.m. today. 3 p.m. deadlock." There was a lot of confusion as to how to handle his request, as at first the Office of the Ombudsman, a government office that seeks to clear up disputes between individuals and the agencies they are complaining about, said no and denied his request to come back into the force. But they did say that they would reopen the case to see if his claim of being framed was true. This decision was handed down to the hostage situation by letter by the then vice mayor of the time, Isco Moreno. Mendoza called this decision garbage. The mayor, however, being in contact with authorities, stated over radio they had agreed to bring him back into the force. But unfortunately, the traffic was just too bad to bring this message to Mendoza, at least according to them. Things started to take a turn for the worse here. At 10 hours into the standoff, the SWAT had arrived, and, as they did, Mendoza threatened to kill the hostages if they did not leave. Because of his threats, his brother, who was in the crowd, Gregorio Mendoza, walked into sight, pleading with his brother to surrender, telling him that nothing will happen here, in which he was arrested. Gregorio himself, being a senior officer of the police force, had a gun on him during this time, and was arrested for passing the exclusion zone with it. He apparently was not asked to help during the negotiations. Very obviously, this infuriated Mendoza, as through all of this, he had been watching everything happen through a TV on the bus, watching his brother being arrested and watching his son being carried away on live television right outside of the bus. He began to fire warning shots, and during his time on the radio interview that he just seemingly happened to be on, demanded the police to release his brother, or he would start the execution. The police then moved in. Shots rang, and he admitted live on air that he had already shot 2 of the hostages. The first shots were heard around 7:21 p.m. Around that same time, snipers had to shoot out the tires as Mendoza tried to move the bus. From here, it was havoc. It was reported on that after the first shots rang out, killing the tour guide he handcuffed, the hostages tried to rush him before he could take anyone else. But he instead fired on the crowd, killing more and injuring others. After this, and around 7:30, the bus driver escaped, screaming, "Everyone is dead." Mendoza began to fire again, aiming for heads, aiming to kill. After running out of options and trying for hours to break into the bus, the SWAT finally decided to throw tear gas into it, forcing Mendoza out and ending the crisis with a bullet to his head, killing him instantly. In total, he killed 8 of the hostages and injured almost everyone else. During the executions, some of those who died protecting their loved ones. Amy Leung told of how her husband Ken Leung shielded her with his body and saved her from harm while sacrificing his own life. And their daughter, Jessie Song Yi, died protecting their older brother. The aftermath of this event was an absolute disaster. All of the hostages that died here were tourists from other countries, leading to high tensions between their governments. Both the Philippine government and the Hong Kong government launched their own investigations into this case, which eventually led to Hong Kong blacklisting the Philippines for travel. Both of these investigations were a mess, as the Filipino investigation showed evidence to suggest that some wounds given to the hostages could have been from the police and the SWAT firing at Mendoza, along with officers involved with the crisis testifying that during the negotiations, one of the negotiators tried to extort Mendoza for money. It also came out during this time that there wasn't even an official hostage team during the entire thing. The official investigation report first delivered to the Chinese embassy in Manila on the morning of September 20th, 2010, before being released to the general public later that day, in an attempt to repair the nation's relations with China. Parts of the official report identified 8 critical errors of the handling of the hostage crisis. Manila Mayor Alfredo Lim failed to properly activate the Crisis Management Committee, depriving the chief negotiator and others of critical information and operational intelligence. The authorities were unable to appreciate Mendoza's demands, and there was a lack of communication with and involvement of the Department of Justice. Gregorio Mendoza was allowed to join the negotiating team in the first place, which now saying that doesn't even make sense as to why they would arrest him. Gregorio had been allowed to preoccupy a position where Lim, Rodolfo, Magdabay, and chief negotiator Orlando Yerba were supposed to be at a critical moment. They also state that Gregorio being there in the first place to be part of the negotiations was a mistake in the first place. Gregorio being arrested was also very fatal. Mayor Lim and Vice Mayor Magdabay were absent from the command post at a very crucial time, having a meal, which created a decision-making vacuum, because they decided to have lunch during the hostage crisis. The inefficient, disorganized, and stalled assault took place without vital information about the bus. Magdabay rejected an order from the Philippine National Police Director for Manila to use the National Elite Special Action Force. And finally, there was absolutely no plan for what to do after the assault, and the crime scene was not preserved because of this. Nothing that happened in this event was necessary. Almost all of it was completely preventable. Mendoza had shown willingness to let the hostages go before they even arrested his brother, which he would not have known happened if the news wasn't biting at the chance to cover this. So many people were involved that seemingly did not care at all about the hostages, and so many decisions were made that are downright inexcusable in my opinion. The arrest of his brother escalated everything. Why even arrest him? It had to be known that it would escalate things. During this time, the news networks covering the crisis began to get extremely heavy criticism due to the live airing being contributed to the death of the hostages. ABS-CBN, TV5, and Radio Mo nationwide were penalized by the KBB for ethics violations, and GMA7 reviewed its policies and its ethics and was finalized on September 9th, 2010. The channel was then rediscovered. This led to the channels deleting and getting rid of most of the footage they had of the hostage crisis. Unfortunately for them, however, there was a YouTube channel taking all of it and re-uploading it. This channel would both go lost and then found by Class MC and The Foggy in 2021. However, part 1 of the coverage was deleted. Some of the coverage was successfully archived and uploaded to thearchive.org on August 5th of 2021. The GMA breaking news coverage was uploaded on YouTube August 2nd, 2021, via a premiere which was soon viewed on August 23rd, 2021, exactly 11 years after the incident. On August 12th of 2021, Part 1 was found by The Foggy on a Daily Motion channel, which was soon uploaded on archive.org. This would be the final resting places of this coverage, and thankfully, we can now view it as one of the darkest parts of the Philippine history.
Fangio has made a bad start, and so has Tony Rolt. Tete Rouge and still Castellotti's Ferrari.
(1955), a year very rare to find live televised events, and this one was special. 24 hours of Le Mans, a World Sports Car Championship, and one of the most prestigious in the world. The 1955 version was the 23rd showing of the event, and only the second to be televised live. 3 teams entered the race, hoping to gain victory, and thousands were waiting to watch, both on television and at the race itself. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know anything about motorsports or the cars themselves. I'm pretty out of my depth with that. But this entry is here for a reason, and it's unfortunate that it ends the way it does. A total of 87 cars showed up for this race, from various different companies and teams, all hoping to win the top spot. And as the race started, it was an absolute uproar of excitement for the crowd, and it went as well as you would expect a race like this to go. But at the 70-minute mark of the race, something happened that ended in tragedy.
Concentrated on the pit area, and it was here the disaster struck at Le Mans. Mercedes blazed at the roadside. It was impossible to...
Lap 35 of the race, Mike Hawthorne, one of the racers racing for Jaguar, was heading out of the Mason Blanche part of the track. One of the other racers seeing this passed into the right track to let him through, and as this happened, Hawthorne also merged into the right lane, passing the other driver. Hawthorne then threw out a signal for a pit stop and hit his brakes, and this is where the issue started. As he hit the brakes hard enough to stop himself at this high of a speed, completely throwing the other drivers out. The other driver, Lance McLin, due to this, also broke just as hard. McLin ran right off the right-hand edge of the track, throwing up a lot of dust. Noticing that Hawthorne was slowing down, McLin swerved left to avoid Hawthorne. Whether it was an instinctive reaction, a loss of control from going onto the change of road surface, or his car's disc brakes operating unevenly. As a result, McLin's car veered across the center of the track, briefly out of control. This led his car to be in the way of Pierre Levey, who, at the time of this, was going about 120 miles an hour. He had no time to react, and in his final act, he threw up a warning for the driver behind him. Levey's front right wheel rode up the rear left of McLin's car, which acted as a ramp and launched Levey's car into the air, flying over spectators and rolling end over end for 80 meters, around 260 feet. He was thrown out of the car, crushing his skull on impact and killing him instantly. This was not the problem, however. The track itself, right after the pit, and right after where Hawthorne hit his brakes, had a slight kink on the right. On top of this, there wasn't a dedicated deceleration lane for the cars trying to pit. This kink in the road put the car's trajectory right at the crowd. The car landed on an earthen embankment between the spectators and the track, bounced, then slammed into the concrete stairwell structure and completely disintegrated. The momentum of the heaviest components of the car went straight into the crowd for about 330 feet. The engine, the radiator, and the front suspensions of the car crushed everything in their path, along with the front lid of the car, which sliced through the air and decapitated any of the spectators who were unfortunate enough to be in its path. The spectators who had climbed onto the ladders and scaffolding to get a better view of the track, and those crowding to use the underpass to get into the pits, found themselves in the way of the pieces flying into the air. When the rest of Levey's car landed on the embankment, the rear-mounted fuel tank exploded. The fire from the explosion raised the temperature of the remaining parts, And unbeknownst to everyone else, the high magnesium content allowed this to burst into white-hot flames, showering the track and crowd with magnesium embers. This was only made worse by the rescue workers unfamiliar with magnesium fires pouring water onto them, greatly intensifying the flames, and as a result, the car burned for several hours. This crash killed 87 people and injured 120, making it the deadliest crash in motorsports history. The race did not end here, however, as it was deemed too dangerous to end. The crowd was not let out due to the fears that they would flood the streets and not make room for emergency services. The race went on for the full 24 hours, all captured live on television. Due to its age, it has been very hard to find copies or archives of the full event, only being partially found, and the rest of it is still being hunted down. But what we do have is the aftermath, and some of what happened before and after the crash. The 1955 24 Hours of Le Mans event is scattered, but as time passes, more and more will be found, and will help piece together this unfortunate part of history. Nirvana, a band name we all at this point in time should know. One of the most famous bands of the late 80s and early 90s, formed in 1987 by the late Kurt Cobain, and would go on to be one of the most famous bands in the United States, only ending their rising status when Kurt tragically took his own life. But during their time, there was a piece of media being passed along by Nirvana fans for a long time before it made its way on the internet. Something that actually outdates the band by at least 3 years. A horror movie made by Kurt Cobain when he was 17. This isn't nearly as dark or as disturbing as the others I have in this series, simply because this is an amateur movie project done by a 17-year-old Kurt Cobain. But I wanted to add this in here because 1, it fits the criteria of found media, and 2, it's a weird look into Kurt's mind, and a dark look at that. A lot of the things shown are shot in an almost nightmare fashion. Not much, to me at least, makes a lot of sense outside of an overall horror feel. It's mainly comprised of shots of Kurt and Chris Novoselic messing around with different horror tropes and special effects, throwing stuff at a wall, if you will. The opening of the 6-minute film is of a man performing a satanic ritual, followed by a copious amount of drugs being consumed. Then it cuts to seemingly random acts of violence committed with no real reason behind it, except for a couple of interesting scenes. A lot of the shots comprised of fake animal abuse, random murders, and a lot of bloody shots. but two of the shots in particular stand out to me. In one of the scenes it cuts to is Kurt Cobain stabbing himself repeatedly. Another shows Kurt shooting and killing a doppelganger of himself, all of which unfortunately I can't really show here even though it's fictionalized, but it shows he was troubled even before he inevitably passed away. There isn't any words spoken during the runtime, as the film from what I could tell was completely silent, with the song added over after the fact by the archivist. The film itself was shot on a Super 8 and is still sought after by Nirvana enthusiasts, but it wouldn't be uploaded and archived until 2013, when the YouTube channel Kermageddon Nirvana found a copy, and then proceeded to upload it to YouTube, in which you yourself can watch the film if you so wish, fully uncensored, only additive being that there is music on top of it. It is strange and it is out there and it is just an art piece, but it still does show you he was suffering even before he took himself out. In 2007. The internet was different, in its infancy. Many of the websites that you know and use today during this time were still trying to figure themselves out, especially YouTube. YouTube back then had a lot of interesting features users on the site could put to use. A 5-star rating system for videos, private messaging, friends lists, and the ability for creators to have direct video responses to one another. Having those responses from other content creators being directly under the original video. Anyone could do this, and it was a fairly good way for community building, collaboration, and engagement. But it had some very unintended side effects. During this time period, 2 new creators would join the platform for wildly different reasons, yet their paths would cross. Asia McGowan and Anthony Powell. Asia McGowan was a 20-year-old woman from Ecorse, Michigan, who started up her YouTube channel in 2006, but wouldn't upload her first video until 2007, titled Spice It Up TV. Her channel was much like most channels on YouTube at the time, not really focused on any one style of content, but instead just a showcase of all of their interests, and of course what she was thinking at the time. Asia focusing on dance routines, vlogs, and comedy skits, not very far out for the time.
McDonald's. No, guys, Ronald McDonald's show, and this is what it is. I'm a young skater boy, right? Or no, a young skater girl. And you know what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to change myself into a hood nigga. A hood boy. Okay? And the thing is, I've been on a computer searching on it.
But as she continued making content and gaining a following, she of course attracted haters. And one particular hater that started to get a bit too personal and a bit extreme. Tony48219. A channel made by Anthony Powell, the same year as Asia, gaining a following around the exact same time. Anthony's content was quite a bit different from Asia's. Anthony Powell was a 28-year-old man with some fairly extreme views, coming to YouTube as a way to spread those views to a wider audience. Anthony's parents had mentioned that he struggled with depression and didn't like taking medications. He was also a very devout Christian, to a point of extremism, as he frequently would post videos about how much he hated atheists. But it wasn't only his hate for atheists he would post. He would also talk very heavily about his hate for women, specifically black women, as he viewed them to be a bit more promiscuous. During the 2 years that he spent on the platform, he would cycle through multiple different accounts due to the nature of his content. But as time went on, he would become increasingly unstable, and viewers were starting to become concerned with his mental health as his rants started to become dangerous.
It's all over. It's all over. The atheists have been defeated. These motherfuckers have been caught on their bullshit. If anything X is the truth, Venom Thing X shut them down. If y'all know Venom Thing X, you already know his videos. A lot of his videos are the truth. He tells the truth. He speaks the word of God like he's supposed to. And we have these fucking Muslims, these atheists, these Jehovah's Witnesses, these tools of Satan, these troopers of Satan, these monsters, these demons, these subhuman monkeys that's trying to destroy the Christian religion. They're going against God. They're going against Jesus. We have to take a stand. We have to stand up for what Jesus did. He died on the fucking cross. He was tortured, beaten, spit on, made fun of, mocked, like we're getting mocked. We have to stand together. These fucking Muslims are gonna strap bombs to their bodies. They're gonna come at us. They're gonna learn how to blow us up. These fucking atheists are gonna sit back and insult us, call us insane. And we got these Jehovah's Witnesses that call us evil. We gotta stand together, my Christian brothers and sisters. We have to. If we don't, then we're all gonna just fall. It's as simple as that. These Muslims, these atheists, these other religions, any of these people, these homosexuals, are our enemies. They're our enemies. And we have to stand against them and take them down. That's all I gotta say for right now. Get me back.
During all of this, Tony would post videos related to Asia McGowan as responses to her videos, harassing her for her skin color and due to the fact that she had expressed that she herself was an atheist, even making multiple fake accounts to add to her harassment. As time passed, this harassment would go on and on and on until Asia got fed up.
Hey, what's up, YouTube? Okay, this don't go out to all the YouTube people. It goes out to just my YouTube haters. Yeah, so finally paid attention to you. But anyway, it's not to sound all like, but for real though, like for the people that just felt like they had to come on my page and hate and think that they were going to get like some comments back from me, well, you thought wrong. And I just feel like it's stupid to leave messages on people's pages when you don't even have any videos on your pages and your page is blank, and you think that you just hate on mine. So yeah, I just want to take you to school a little bit, haters. When you hate, you feel as if you're here, and the other person is down here. And when you hate, this is what you do. Bringing the other person up, and you bringing yourself down because you hating, and you making that person look famous, and you just bringing a lot of spark to them. So that don't make any sense. That just go against logic, for real though. Now the haters, this is what you can do. The haters, this you on my screen. Bounce off the screen and bounce off my page. And for the people that like what I'm doing, stay right here. We all cool. That's what I'm talking about. So yeah, people find something better to do and stop going on my page and write stupid messages, okay? It's ghetto, it's tacky, and you need to find some better time. So yes, have a lovely day, and for all the people that like my videos, I love you. and I'm gonna keep you guys posted.
This would be the last video Asia ever posted. What neither of these creators knew beforehand is that not only did they live within the same state, they went to the same community college. Tony would find out about this. Both Tony and Asia had an interest in film. Asia actually ended up getting a small role in a film called Prayers for Bobby at one point. And Tony was interested in making his own one day, which is why he attended the Henry Ford Community College. And on April 13th of 2009, Anthony went to the Mackenzie Fine Arts Center at the Henry Ford Community College in Dearborn, Michigan, where he made his way towards a classroom. There, he found Asia McGowan, who he ended up taking a theater course with. According to the Dearborn Police Department, an emergency call was made to the campus after sounds of an assault were made from a classroom, followed by gunshots. Upon entering the scene, they found that both individuals were dead from a murder-suicide. After McGowan was ambushed with a shotgun, Powell turned the gun onto himself. This, of course, turned into a major debate after the fact about religion and how the internet can affect us and how it can exacerbate harmful views. Tony was struggling with a lot, and more than likely didn't have a good support group within his life, dealing with depression, religious anger, frustration with women, and seemingly shame over his race. It's hard not to see the warning signs that he was going to do something. But what exactly is the internet's role in it? Did it really enable him? Honestly, I don't really think so. In his videos, he had an increasingly bleak outlook on life. But according to multiple sources, the comments continuously were worried about his mental health and decline. I will say, however, YouTube and the internet as a whole did give him a fixation that most definitely made his mental health worse and gave him a target for his rage. Anthony Powell is the first known YouTube killer, with unfortunately many more to follow after him. After this event, YouTube ended up deleting Anthony's final account, along with all of his uploads, leaving it hard to find an archive of what was there. And in 2021, Asia McGowan's channel was hacked, and due to this was deleted from YouTube, along with her videos. Only a handful survive, including her first and her final videos. As I've said before in part 2 of this series, most lost YouTube videos tend not to be considered lost media, simply because of the fact that in order to be considered lost media, whatever it is must be culturally impactful enough to have a community of people actively looking for it. YouTube videos and YouTube channels tend not to be able to pull this off, since most of the content on YouTube that gets lost is, let's be honest here, very inconsequential. But sometimes there are videos, creators, events that happen on this platform that, for better or for worse, change the history of the platform entirely. Asia was just a woman with aspirations that she put out into the world through YouTube. She was outspoken and wanted to share her talents and interests, but her case was unfortunately a warning sign we should have taken a bit more seriously, as despite this being the first recorded murder to have taken place due to YouTube, many more would follow from various creators. Please, take mental health seriously. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good night.